Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission to order for Monday, July 2nd, 2018. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Cooney.
Present.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Here.
Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Commissioner Urban. Here. Vice Mayor Knott.
Here.
Mayor Hopewell.
Thank you. For our opening ceremony, I'm going to ask that Commissioner Cooney provide us with an invocation. I ask that you stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you. Oh God of all that is good, we thank you for all that you give us. We thank you for the season, but not for the heat. We celebrate this season of flowers and beauty and all that is about us. We celebrate this community for its love of justice and for all the people that were in the park on Saturday to stand up for justice and right. We ask that we may follow your will and do what is best for this community in our meeting tonight. We ask this in the name of God and all that is good. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, you have the agenda before you. Are there any changes? Commissioner Urban.
Yes, I'd like to remove an item from the consent agenda so we can discuss it a little in public here. And that's item number 2 on the consent agenda. Having to do with
item 2. Okay.
a consultant being hired to advise on consolidation
Item
of
2,
facilities.
got it. Anyone in the audience wanting to comment, or if you want to speak on any item under the consent agenda, that item needs to be moved to the regular agenda. If you have such an item, please indicate at this time. Okay. Seeing none and hearing none, we are now at communications.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. Consent agenda, please.
We have 13 items on the agenda, with 12 and 13 being held until July 16th. First is the approval of a one-year contract with Ferguson Waterworks for the purchase of miscellaneous water parts inventory in the amount of $166,422. Next is the approval of a contract with Hoffman Brothers for the construction of the Station 22 water main project in the amount of $1,186,906. Next is the approval of a contract with Whiteman Associates for professional engineering services related to the Portage Street improvements between Stockbridge Avenue and Lovell Street in the amount of $141,800. Next is the approval of a contract with Hoffman Brothers for the Dutton Place public utility improvement projects in the amount of $210,000. Next is the first reading of an ordinance to rezone 37 parcels in the East Cork Street area from Zone M1 Manufacturing Limited District to Zone CC Commercial Community District and set a public hearing on the matter for August 6, 2018. Next is the adoption of a corrected resolution vacating the public alley between North Park Street and Cooley Street and rescinding Resolution 18-11. Next is the adoption of a resolution to accept a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant authorized by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources equal to 33% of $919,000 and in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for improvements to Bronson Park, appropriating a match of the grant of $616,000, accepting terms of the agreement as received from the DNR and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. Next is the approval of an addendum to the traffic maintenance, signal maintenance and utility locating services agreement between the City of Kalamazoo and the Road Commission of Kalamazoo County to add a second traffic signal maintenance technician. Next is the approval of an agreement granting an easement to Consumers Energy for an underground pipeline in Emerald Park, and authorize city manager to sign all necessary and related documents to grant the easement. Next is the adoption of a resolution vacating the northern 105 feet of Forsman Avenue. And finally, authorization for the sale of 5 parking spaces on the alley behind the premises at 250 North Kalamazoo Mall.
Thank you, Commissioners. The requested action is a motion to approve items 1, items 3 through 11, and hold items 12 and 13 until July 16th, 2018, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support. Moved by Commissioner Sykes, supported by Commissioner Anderson. Wrestling to make motions tonight. Interesting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott,
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. Regular agenda, Mr. Manager.
We have the approval of a professional services agreement with CSM Group for the Comprehensive Harrison Facility Program Assessment for the consolidation of the Stockbridge and Harrison facilities into one campus in the amount of $251,653.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Microphone, please.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to understand and have the public be aware of what's the reason for this, looking into this, what the expected benefits are to be, and comparing that to the cost of the consulting effort. So I'm sure this has been thought through, but I think the public needs to hear about it, and I need to assess what you say.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, I'll ask Director Baker to come forward, Public Services Director. The idea here is at Stockbridge right now, part of our public works staff are located there, streets and water, and then Harrison contains the rest, wastewater. The idea is to co-locate them all on one site, that being the Harrison facility, but Director Baker provide more detail.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor and the Honorable Commission. Some background on what we want to look into. Now, we don't have a project per se, and that's really what we want to study. We don't know what those costs would be, and we don't necessarily understand all what the impacts would be. But we have a aging facility at Stockbridge. That facility dates back to the early 1950s. And it's currently overutilized in terms of where the equipment's being stored and the amount of people in the spaces and everything that we have there. Majority of the equipment, most all of the equipment sits outside, unprotected from the weather, and the equipment obviously is highly capitalized, highly utilized. What we'd like to study and look at is a co-location to have all public services, personnel, equipment, facilities at the Harrison facility, and proper facilities for fleet maintenance, storage of vehicles, locker room, crew areas, and that sort of thing. Some background on how we're utilizing the Stockbridge facility currently. We have some old garage space that we converted to lockers. So we have crew right now that are their locker room areas in some old garage space, and like I stated previously about the equipment, all the equipment being outside and exposed to the facilities. So we don't know what those future costs would be. We don't know what the impacts would be, but we'd like to embark upon this study to take a look at that, understand that, and be able to plan that into future budgets. Now, those budgets might be 10 or 20 years into the future, but we at least like to have a plan to move forward.
Good. Thank you. One question I want to follow up with you on. Does that include relocating the building, the part of CP&D, the zoning and buildings inspection outfit as well?
I think that would be looked at under separate facilities plans. The facility plan that you have in front of you would be just for public services.
Okay, okay, good, thank you. Well, I guess I want to proceed with the study, recognizing that it may take some while to actually sort what we'll actually end up doing. And, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you, Mr. Director.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wanting to comment on this item? That item would be F7. Please step to the podium. You'll have 4 minutes. Not F7, sorry. F2. Please step to the podium. You'll have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Hearing no one, Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve this item and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Moved by Vice Mayor Knott.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Cunningham. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. Commissioners, apparently the city manager may have inadvertently skipped item F7. I've been advised by the attorney, being that the motion did cover all the items on the consent agenda and the items were noticed, that we do not need to have another vote. However, I'm going to have him read the item just to make sure it gets into the record.
Sure.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, sorry about that. In the excitement of getting to read the consent agenda, I overlooked that. So what I missed was adoption of a resolution of intent to create a downtown corridor improvement authority, hereafter referred to as the Downtown Kalamazoo Economic Growth Authority, and set a public hearing on the matter for August 6, 2018.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Manager, you have a report this evening?
None, Your Honor.
Mr. Attorney, you have a report? No, Your Honor. Mr. Clerk?
No, sir.
We are now at citizens' comments. Any citizen wanting to comment on any item this evening, please step to the podium. You'll have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Good evening.
I'm Nehemiah Scudder. I live in the city. And earlier today, I got a wonderful interview with our mayor, Bobby Hopewell, sitting in for, and I thought the citizens of Kalamazoo would like to hear this. First is my question by Nehemiah. Sir, what would you use as a definition of freedom? Bobby Hopewell. I guess freedom is the ability to participate in one's community in a way that allows one to live a fully human life in dignity and wealth and worth. Nehemiah. Were you aware that the USA has a high proportion of its citizens in lockup than virtually any other country? Bobby, yes, I am aware. I believe we have over 3 million of our people incarcerated. I'm not sure this is correct, but it is my understanding that we have more incarcerated people than all the developed nations combined. Nehemiah, does that include Russia, sir? Bobby, I am not sure. Nehemiah, you probably know that many of the 3 million incarcerated are black. Bobby, yes, there is a high proportion of African Americans incarcerated than Caucasians. Nehemiah, I don't know, but what is the situation here in Kalamazoo? Bobby, there is a disproportionate amount of African Americans in our county jail, which is similar to the trend in the state of Michigan prisons and national statistics. Nehemiah, sir, is this due to racism or are there other causes operating? Bobby, I believe it has to do with socioeconomics, whether poverty or institutional racism. We have so many systems that preclude minorities or African Americans to be successful in daily life. Nehemiah, Isn't it true that many are in lockup due to obsolete laws such as penalties for marijuana possession? Bobby, absolutely. We have laws that were designed to target minorities that need to be done away with. Nehemiah, Alvin Toffler and Heidi Toffler argue that laws are almost the last thing to change in our current social revolution. Bobby, I think they are correct. If one thinks about it or looks at our political climate, those elected official individuals who raise the idea of decriminalization issues are often viewed as being weak on crime. I believe it is the exact opposite. In doing this work right, it can have a more impactful effect on making our communities safer by allowing law enforcement to concentrate on crimes that affect quality of life in a larger way. Nehemiah, in conclusion, what else, if anything, is necessary to change this system? Bobby, electing the correct individuals. Those individuals would be people that understand the gravity and opportunity that comes with making change. There's some other...
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening.
My name is Dale Hine. I live at 1912 Oakland Drive here in Kalamazoo. I'm here as the co-chair of the Say Yes to Seniors Millage campaign in the county this year. My co-chair, Lucinda Stinson, is in the audience with me. I just wanted to update you a little bit on it and see if you have any thoughts about that. You know, right now in Kalamazoo County, seniors are waiting for access to a number of home services, whether they be home-delivered meals, in-home services like personal care and chore services. There's up to a 300-person waiting list at this point in time. That's really an unacceptable thing for our senior citizens in our county. 73 counties in Michigan have a senior millage. We're one of the very few that does not have one. I think it's time that we got with the program on that. This is a fairly small millage request, 0.35 mils countywide, which equates to about $35 a year for the taxable value assessment of $100,000 per home. So it's a relatively small investment with a big return. Many of us in this community and in this room are caregivers for older adults, we all are aging. I know as a baby boomer that I plan to live a while longer, and you know, we're taking care of our older parents, and our parents, and you know that they want to live and age with dignity in their own homes, and that's what this will do. It will provide those kinds of services that keep folks in their homes and allow them not to go off to be put in more costly arrangements. So hopefully you will, I would ask that at the commission you may endorse the senior millage, the Say Yes to Seniors millage for this year. It is on August 7th. I would remind everybody on primary day, that's when this millage is. It's the only question on the ballot right now. So hopefully it will have your support individually, and it'd be nice if there was a collective support from the City Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, all. How you doing? Citizens time already? Did you change when the format? County, take note, right? I'm a little winded because I just ran across the street. As you know, my name is Tracy Holland. I live at 2305 Amherst, and I'll get my breath. It feels a little extra special to be sharing the space with Aaron tonight because we lost a dear friend today, so I'm glad you're here. I'm here to talk about the Say Yes to Seniors campaign, also known as the Senior Millage. Mayor Hopel, I've heard you say numerous times that Kalamazoo is a masterpiece in the making. So true. But I bet we all can agree that there are many in our community, our city, our county, that face enormous burdens and barriers and suffer on a daily basis. One such community is our elder population. We have over, I'm getting my breath, I promise. I gotta go back to run camp. Dang. We have over 50,000 seniors living in the county. On any given day, 300 on a wait list to receive essential services like home-delivered meals, personal care, and homemaking chores. The Millage will provide other critical services as well, like adult daycare and a long-term ombudsman. We are just one of 10 counties that do not have a senior millage. We're better than that, you all. We're the city of Kalamazoo, we're Kalamazoo County. We should be leading in these things. In addition to this being an important community issue, this is also a very personal issue to me as well. Neither my mom nor myself knew that my own grandmother had to make the decision of choosing between getting her prescriptions and eating. She was raised in the Depression and very, very proud. Had we known, we would have done whatever we could, but she would have never wanted to place that burden on us. For everyone's grandma and grandpa in our community, and every other elder person, I don't want them to go through what my own Nana went through. So this is a modest village request, about $35 a year. And I'm asking you today, as my city commission, and as our public body, to consider endorsing the Say Yes for Senior millage. I'm also asking each one of you, if you have not done so yet, to individually come out and publicly endorse this important millage. Thank you for your time. Where's the oxygen?
Thank you. Next, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dave Banach. I'm one of the candidates for the 6th Congressional District seat. And I want to thank you for the good work you're doing and for giving me a chance to address the members of the commission. And I want to take some time today to riff off of what Commissioner Cooney talked about with his invocation. And that's the love of justice.
Can you tell us if you live in the city?
Oh, yeah, 1410 Henderson Drive.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Cooney started us off talking about the love of justice. And that, when it comes down to it, is the base of why I'm running. We don't have a society that has a love for justice when 46,000 Americans die because they don't have health care. We don't have a love for justice if 40,000 veterans are homeless on the streets every night. You know, we don't have a love for justice if we have a minimum wage that people work 2 jobs more than full time and live below the poverty line. We don't have a love for justice when our prisons and our schools are being run for the profits of corporations. And we don't have a love for justice when we separate families at the border and tell people who are seeking asylum that we don't want them. That's not the United States that we should live in, and it certainly is not what Kalamazoo stands for. And I want to go back to what the last couple of commentators talked on. Endorsing the senior millage is a great step for us in terms of showing our love for justice. We need to take care of those people in our society who need the help. This is a chance for us to do that, and I urge you to get on board with this, which is one of the more important things that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, I'm Jody Dolman. I live in the city of Kalamazoo, kind of with friends down at the mission, wherever I get scooted around to. Anyway, as far as senior services, when I lived at Stadium Drive Apartments, I would give them opportunities. You had MISHDA programs and some opportunities down there that people would come in and regulate. You could open up books, and there's ways to keep printouts and tracks monthly of income, of how the money's spent, help them organize their receipts, find out what was going on. When I lived at Stadium Drive Apartments, between the 3rd and the 7th, I had 3 things stolen from a case that I keep locked up that my address book is in. I had first my $25 for like a taxi in case somebody got cut, that they could get a taxi instead of a high-cost ambulance ride. That was gone, on the 3rd. Then I had a roll of quarters for laundry. That was gone like on the 4th. And then I had bus tokens, 5 of them, and they were gone on the 5th. So 3 times my basket was invaded. That reminds me of Mary Gilman. And, you know, to get the addresses, and first, what was it? Her sister had died, killed, something. Okay, then her brother comes into town with her granddaughter, and there were issues. And from what I understand, death involved. Now, when when I was doing taxes, I keep my stuff organized, and my daughter's handicapped cat that just had a paw, dead, she's dead. I put her toys away. There's Judy walking through the lobby, and I go up, and there's my dead cat's toy on my baby pictures I had organized, not yet put on the wall. So I know there's issues going on with that. There's no doubt about it, to have that stuff stolen and them kind of organizations happen. So there should be ways to, like, you know, it's job security. You can create jobs. You could have people come in and go over what receipts they do keep, because some of those people are really qualified enough if they have the right organization to save their receipts and have people utilize the time to help the seniors and go over once a month, so that it takes time. I'm a slow learner. Sometimes I'm slow to comprehend. Either that or it's just not the right timing for me. So to get a job security going, to utilize their money so that they can see how it's spent, what to do right, or to have the paperwork there so other family members can come in and see what's going on with the money would be really nice. That's my input. You know, I preferred my son's grandmother to live in her home. My aunt lived with her son till she died in hospice. So that's what I was hoping for, to utilize the grandchildren, utilize other services. The tender care is $3,000 for a week and a half, where she could be at home and there could be home care. I find some of the moments ridiculous that people don't care for their own family, let alone some of the ways they can be utilized to make it better. And maybe it's just input that's needed. Knowing's half the battle sometimes with people. And that's the start. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to address the commission?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mayor Hopewell. I'm Lucinda M Stinson. I'm the co-chair for the Say Yes to Senior campaign, and I live at 320 Glendale Boulevard, Parchment, Michigan. The point that I want to make this evening is very clear. It's very simple. According to a recent survey that was done, and in the condensed version, we as baby boomers are outpacing our children. Very, very soon, there will be more seniors than there are kids. We now live in a generation where our children are going to be taking care of us. We want to live so that we can live in our own homes with dignity and respect, and being able to not be a burden on our children. With this millage, that will enable many, many families to recognize the fact that they've worked hard to secure their own homes. They worked hard to get to where we are now, to be a senior, to be in living in an environment where you're safe and you're comfortable. So the question is, does it make sense that we are one of 10 counties out of 10 counties that do not have a senior millage? We're all aging. We all have a date with destiny that's called aging. So therefore, if we are outpacing the children, our children in our community, then there's an issue. Please recognize the fact that this is a very, very important issue. I took care of my own mother when she was dying of cancer. It was a very humbling responsibility, but she was my mom. I took care of her from the very first day we realized she had cancer. I was with her from day in and day out until she took her last breath. But here's the key. She was in her home that her and my father built. The first African Americans to build a home in Comstock. They built it. She lived there. She died there with dignity and respect. We are asking that you please consider endorsing this, coming out not only with your words, but in written form and also financial support, so that we can say yes to our seniors here in Kalamazoo County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to address the commission this evening? Seeing no one, we are at commissioners' comments. Commissioner Sykes, I almost did it again.
Did you forget my name, Mayor?
No,
I'm just teasing. So first I want to show my personal gratitude to the folks that came out to speak up for the Say Yes for Seniors campaign and the vote on primary day. It's August 7th, right? I said that right? It's the worst thing you can do is give the wrong date. So August 7th, when you're going out to vote for your primary candidates, make sure that you vote for this resolution. And I would like to say that I'm very happy to personally endorse this campaign. And I am sure we would agree that this might be something that we can put on our next meeting's agenda, and maybe just a simple resolution to say that we as a commission endorse this campaign, so long as we're all in agreement. I tend to assume so. We agree on most things, guys. I think that would be great. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for the work that you all are doing. I also wanted to touch on a resolution that I understand Commissioner Tracy Hall, the County Commission, will be discussing tomorrow, and that is our stance on the family separations that are happening at the border, and also ICE checkpoints in our state. I'm not sure that that's on your resolution, but I would like to talk about it in terms of ours and taking a stance as a body to those activities, and then also discussing whether we include our intentions regarding KDPS's budget and any resources that may or may not be used for ICE holds. That's something else that the County Commission is going to be discussing. I say this just to notify all of you and also to say to our constituents that I personally, this is something I'd like for us to discuss and perhaps have ready for our next meeting as a resolution that we can vote on. One other thing I want, or not one other thing, I've got two more things. Just real quick, I was contacted by family members of a gentleman, 72-year-old gentleman on the north side of Kalamazoo. I'm a little bit confused about this situation. I want to be really, really, really clear here. I have not spoken to city staff about this yet. I just saw the video this weekend, so I am not stating this publicly to call anybody out at all. I'm sure that we'll get a chance, as we often do, to discuss what's going on here so that we can answer any questions that folks have. But because some folks are intending to watch, I want them to be clear in knowing that we are going to lift this up, discuss it, and then get back to answer any questions. But the confusion is this gentleman is 72 years old, and his family members are under the impression that a warrant was issued for his arrest because his grass was over 12 inches high. And I'm confused, and so I have questions. I know they are as well. Apparently this gentleman does not read or write, and so his family members are trying to figure out what's going on there. There was a live video posted on Facebook that definitely made it seem as if the neighbor's grass, lawn, weeds were taller than theirs as he was preparing, his son was preparing to mow. And so I just got a lot of questions around how, those sorts of situations turn into warrants, if they do, if there's some misunderstanding happening somewhere in the lines of communication. So want to lift that up and just say that we should talk about that, and then we're happy to answer any questions for community members. And finally, I just posted about this on Facebook, and I'm going to use this platform to lift it up as well. I imagine a lot of people are feeling this way. In fact, I talked to a lot of people that are feeling this way, and that is that we are in a very interesting and scary time in our country and in the world right now. And there are a lot of things happening that I know a lot of us are really struggling with. And it turns into often a disconnection between many of us, right? And I'm just as guilty as anybody else Y'all, if y'all know me, know I can get a little bit upset at times. All in love, of course. But anyway, I've been thinking about that over the weekend and feeling some real intense anxiety over where we are and where we're headed. And then I woke up on Sunday morning and just had a thought, an idea. And ever since that happened, I've been like just excited and have refound my my smile and my joy and my work and all of that. So that idea is that we, because I have talked to a number of people who are going to join in on this campaign, will be collecting love letters. So we are looking for any and everybody here in our city, in the state, in the country, globally, to just write a love letter. Love letters can be written to friends, family members, somebody you know, maybe your kids or future generations, ancestors, people you've never met, your grandmother who maybe passed away when you were a kid, your neighbor that you don't talk to enough, right? Somebody you saw at the grocery store and you guys locked eyes but you never spoke. Somebody that you know is completely on the opposite side in political ideology from you, somebody who lives in a different country, somebody you read about in an article, whatever. The only requirement is that it be an actual, genuine expression of love for the person that you are writing to, that you're addressing your letter to. You can sign it yourself, you can leave it anonymous. If you could do that and send those to lovelettersforpeace@gmail.com, myself and others would greatly appreciate it. And then stay tuned for a website that will be going up at www.lovelettersforpeace.com, but that website is not up yet. So if you go there now, you won't see anything. It feels really important to me that we are spreading love around our country and around the world. And I think that love is something you can't fight against, right? And frankly, for somebody who, like me, who worries about oncoming fascism, like to see somebody fight love or a love letter. So anyway, so please indulge me and others. We will be organizing these letters, going through them, seeking various different ways to put them out there, whether or not it's sending them letters to the editor all over the globe, whether or not it's a care package we send to an activist organization or something who needs to just know that we care about their work, whether or not it's a white supremacist group that we just want to know that, like, you're on the wrong side of this thing, but we still love you when you're ready to come back to us. So all kinds of possibilities. So yeah, so join me, tell your friends, tell your family. You can look me up on Facebook, Shannon Sykes Nearing, and share my post, tag your folks, especially those that you know in other countries and other states, so that we can really make this thing grow as fast as possible. And let's write some love letters. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cooney.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming here and reminding us about the senior millage. It's such an important thing, and it certainly is unacceptable that we have so many people that are just in line to get food. Yesterday, I had the privilege of serving lunch at the Ministry with Community, and they have prepared lunch for 150 people, and 228 people came in for lunch. And somebody turned to me and said, what would these people do if this place wasn't here? And I think it's a reminder that America is the unfinished masterpiece that the mayor talks about all the time. And I think on the 4th of July, it's a time for us to reflect about what kind of a country are we? What kind of a country do we want to be? And I've been reading a lot of Robert Kennedy's speeches lately, because this is the 50th anniversary of his death, as it is of Martin Luther King's. And the thing that always strikes me about those two people is that they didn't give up on America. They believed that we as a people could get where we should be. And it's a struggle. But I think this is a reminder that we can do this, that it's important, it's critical for the kind of a country we want to be and the kind of people we want to be.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, Mayor Hopewell. First of all, I'm glad to get to hear you come down and speak about the senior millage. One thing I want to emphasize in the course of my endorsing that that effort, is be sure when you vote on August 7th that you turn the ballot over. Lots of times people forget that the proposals are on the back side. You think you've done your job when you vote for the candidates, turn that ballot over, and that's where the proposal is. That's where the stuff that's really going to make a difference to seniors is. It's on the back of the ballot, not on the front, at least in the short term here. So be sure to turn your ballot over on November 7th and vote yes for seniors. I'd also like to comment on some remarks Commissioner Sykes-Naring was making about justice and the immigration issues. Thinking about something I learned recently, you know, right now there's a movie titled RBG. It stands for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. One of her close friends is someone who is on the absolute opposite side of many Supreme Court issues, and that was Antonin Scalia. In spite of their differences ideologically and in their legal analyses, they had great respect for one another. Justice Scalia was seeking always to find the originator's intent in writing the Constitution. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Ginsburg, respected his effort in that regard. And when she was asked what's her intent in doing legal work on the Supreme Court, and she said, my intent is to seek a more perfect union. And I thought that was very eloquent and very straightforward. And the key thing is that both of these people respected each other. That's what gives me hope. We need to cultivate that in spite of the fact that in this country, we're the wealthiest country in the world. If we're so wealthy, why do we feel so poor? And I ask you to reflect on that. And I think it has to do with, obviously, the inequity in distribution of income. How much do the rich really need? And to what purpose is that wealth being put? Often it's being put toward what's called rent seeking. Rent seeking is an economic term that basically says, I'm going to pay a lot for something that already exists that doesn't necessarily create any additional wealth. It just means money changes hands, and maybe the price goes up over time on account of this because of induced or created shortages. So I'm all for the capitalistic system, but I'd like to see it tempered with justice. We're always going to need to have justice present if the capitalism is to deliver on its high claims for itself. So that's it for now. It's a little longer than usual, but I felt moved by Commissioner Naring to weigh in on this stuff too.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham.
Say yes to seniors. I personally endorse. I think that I've had the opportunity to have conversations with other leaders in this community, both in regards to a lot of our at-risk. More importantly, we're having a conversation around housing, finding ways to be supportive. We've been talking about mental illness in a lot of different ways. And saying yes to seniors, I think, is a way where we are locally trying to fill the gap for some state and national initiatives that we think hasn't really been meeting the mark. So I think that it is imperative that not only do we get out to vote, but we make sure that others get out to vote. Very important resource is michigan.gov/vote. Once again, that's michigan.gov/vote. That website will show you if you're registered. It will show you where you're registered to vote at, and it will also give you information on what's on your upcoming ballot, which is August 7th. So I think that is very important. Since we are talking about our elderly, we have a holiday that's coming up that I truly love. It's an opportunity for families to get together, but it is also a very rough time for our elderly and our vets. I know if Frank was still here, he would have definitely gave us 4 minutes stating that people are out here firing off fireworks. And so one resource, by the law, they are only allowed the day before, the day of, and the day after to let off fireworks. So if individuals are not meeting that guideline, I think it is our job to stand in the gap for our elderly and make sure that we are making the proper contacts. And the number that we can use is a non-emergency line, which is 269-337-8120. Once again, it's a non-emergency number, 269-337-8120, if we want to report any misuse of our fireworks in the community. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, Commissioner Hall, you don't need run camp. Just hit your goal of 70 to 100 doors per night and you'll be back in shape. So just quickly, I have a question and then a request. My question is for the city manager. Has the Say Yes for Seniors ballot committee officially asked us, maybe their staff, or was the co-chairs the request to put something on our agenda related to the millage?
Not to my knowledge, but I've been out of the office for about 10 days, so.
It's my understanding that either a Jared or a Miranda was supposed to send some information to go through the process.
Yeah, I can check into that. Yeah.
All right. And then my request is looking for, not tonight obviously, but an update in the near future, maybe 2 updates. One is what's the status of the conversations related to graphic packaging and the ongoing odor pollution that is not only impacting the east side and the north side neighborhoods, which it's been doing for forever, but it's now bleeding into the Douglas, the downtown, as well as the West Nitch Hill neighborhoods. We're still getting blamed for that odor pollution. So looking for an update and maybe a secondary or supplemental report how that work with graphic packaging will interconnect with our upcoming climate action plan. That's all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to ask that Chief Thomas come up and address fireworks. There are some things that we need to be clear about that we can and cannot do. One of the things she will say, and I'm going to repeat it now, is that unless our officers see the fireworks happen, the law doesn't really support them doing a whole lot. So when you have whatever number of officers and 300 calls for service in a day, it's a challenge that we have to work with everyone in neighborhoods to try to help us figure out proactively, not just reactively, and that's the work that needs to go forward. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. The firework violations, and we are getting a lot of complaints this time of year, now that fireworks are legal here in Michigan, and they're being sold in every tent on every corner throughout the city, many more people have access and don't really follow the rules, or you probably even know when they can light those off. It's usually just when they're in their possession they light them off. Our stance on the fireworks are we will respond to firework calls, but they are not a top priority in our call for service. So when we get calls for service, we stack those based on what the priority of that call is. So many times when we get to the area where the fireworks have gone off, the fireworks have gone off, and so no one is still there. There may be remnants, and we'll see this the morning of July 5th, all the remnants in the street, and they've already lit them off, and we have no one to associate with because we didn't see them light them off. So it is very frustrating. It does help when people call in those, although we may not get there right when they're going off. It helps us accumulate that data of where those pockets are located. That is a prevalence of fireworks going off. And when we look forward to next year of using that data of maybe some proactive things the month prior to the 4th of putting, door tags on or going door to door, whatever we can educate people might minimize some of that. I don't think we'll get rid of the fireworks outside of the window of the fireworks. But we do ask people to be patient. The 4th of July and New Year's Eve are our busiest days. And so many things are happening. on those days, and we do get there, but I'm just going to be honest, we don't get there right away. But please do call so that we can collect that data. Maybe if the officer doesn't have any calls waiting, he'll hang out in that area to see if more fireworks happen. And I know it's frustrating to so many people and frustrating to people who have pets, and I wish there was more that we could do. Our stance is, if we go up, we do give warnings first, as it is with these ordinance violations. That's how we handle ordinance violations. So just know that too, that if you see the police and no one got a citation or any of those things, we do go up and we give someone a warning. We come back and it is logged in those. But it is a very frustrating time. I'm hoping by next Monday, it'll just be a distant memory, but it's a very challenging time during this. And we have another holiday at the end of the summer. We'll have to look at the same thing.
And Chief and I talked about this over the weekend, because I received, as some of you did, some communication, and we always do during this time of the year. It's really this proactive policing. It's this intelligence. So typically, I would guess that folks that ignited fireworks last year probably are doing it again this year. So how can we build our intelligence to know who we need to be talking to most? How do we build a connection to neighbors that who's doing this in your neighborhood typically, and you've known for a couple years? So maybe giving us an alert, that might be a door we need to knock on whatever day, June 25th, to say, hey, we don't know, we've heard, whatever it might be. Also having good intelligence afterwards as we're seeing the remnants of this stuff. That would be an indication that someone likes fireworks there. It doesn't mean that they lit them off after midnight on those days that are allowed, or that they lit them off prior. But it gives you something to go on. So, and I encourage Chief that we do have Labor Day coming up, and we need to remember that's one of the holidays, and there may be some of these things we can put in place to have strategic and well-informed tactics to try to help deal with some of this. But it is a challenge. And I will remind the audience that you did not hear the chief say we don't respond. I remind the audience that we do have calls that do take priority over other calls, whether it's fireworks, whether it's a barking dog, whether it's what have you. If a fire goes out, we'll have multi-apparatus that are fire apparatus and a number of public safety officers responding to that fire. And you can imagine during fireworks time, we may have a few more fires. I'm just guessing. If a medical emergency goes out, a cardiac arrest is going to override a fireworks complaint. It's just the way you handle responding. It's how it works. We could put on 10 more officers. Let me tell you, in those days, probably needed to try to deal with calls that are stacked, but we still have to catch people in the act. One of the things you can do is advocate for the ordinance to change, or the law to change in our state. Laws can be repealed. Laws can be adjusted. Laws can give public safety and law enforcement more power, those sorts of things. But we as a local community, we are limited in things that we can do related to this. We haven't forgotten it. We're not ignoring it. We're giving you reality, and reality is not going to please some folks, and I get that, but this is the case. And I know we haven't heard a lot of reality coming out of Washington, but I thought we'd speak the truth here and be be honest about how this works and what happens. So, anyway, Chief, thank you very much. We are adjourned.